Khalsa,
Waheguru Fateh. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. This is Ravinder Singh from Columbus, welcoming you all back to Khoj Gurbani after a break. We are going to start a thematic session and the topic is going to be Naam. And as it turns out, I am going to be the guinea pig to sort of start this session. So Harvinder will do the moderation. And with that said, I will attempt to talk about Naam. Don't be discouraged by the number of slides. I have no intention of dwelling on each one of them. I want to just very quickly go through a lot of the slides and just dwell on a couple of things. So with that said, you know, there is I want to start with a line from Gurbani, which says something, and I may have the words mixed up, but Jehon jana akha nahi, which means if I knew what Naam is, I would be silent. Because Naam is ineffable, it's unfathomable, and it's transcendent. At least that's what Gurbani tells us. But Gurbani also tells us that while it is ineffable, unfathomable, and transcendent, it is also accessible to us, which is why we continue to dialogue about Naam and other themes in Gurbani. And the idea is that so that we can capture our ideas, learn from each other, and who knows, we might be able to sort of access the eye of the needle almost through which we may have to pass. So today my approach is going to be rather simple. I don't want to lecture too much. I'd rather have a dialogue. So first, what I'll do is the first few slides, quickly run through them, essentially to level set and to contextualize the concept of Naam as it has come to us from Gurbani. And of course, I qualify that by saying that it is my understanding of Gurbani. So just contextualize it. And second, then share with you a couple of points where I've been wrestling with some ideas in my own mind, and my thoughts are not all that mature, but I think you might be able to help me figure out what I'm thinking. So I will just touch on a few things as I go along. So with that said, we'll go to the first slide here, which I've called the centrality of Naam in Sikhi. And just as part of the contextualization, I mean, clearly, Naam is central to Gurbani. It is the spinal doctrine, if you will. And, you know, it appears over 5,000 times, I figured, and that means on an average of 3.5 times every page. And if you throw in intertwined and overlapping concepts like Shabad and Hukam and Guru, then you get the idea, basically, that it is indeed the central idea in Gurbani. And in fact, Nanak ke ghar keval Naam, you know, Naam is the only fixture in Guru Nanak's house, is something that Guru Arjan reminds us. And I believe Guru Nanak's path was once referred to as Naam Marg. So obviously a very important concept to understand and to try and figure out. Very quickly, want to talk about the etymology of the word Naam, find it interesting. In the Indian system, we have this idea of an object having a naam and a roop, an essence and a form. So every object in the universe has kind of a form and an associated name, except that Satnam, in this case, has essence but no form. So therefore, it is the essence of existence. And in literal terms, it simply means name, a signifier of something, a suchak. And in the Mool mantra, it signifies existence, ekonkar. So that's the etymology. The etymology, it comes from the Sanskrit naam and mana. I mean, I'm not a linguist, but this is what I understand it to be. The other hallmark of Naam is, apart from being ineffable and unfathomable, and the ground of our being, I tried to figure. I was very interested in the fact that there are different types of descriptive associations that Naam has. There is Naam Japo, there is Naam Teho, there's Naam Suni, sound. It's associated with Hirde, another very important concept, which is the depths of our being. It's also associated with light, which I understand to be knowledge. So what struck me was that the association with these different categories, or, it seems to me that we have to engage all of our faculties with Naam, not just this, that, or the other. And then, of course, I found this particular Shabad very telling. Sri Rag Mahalla Pehla. It's pretty long. I'm not going to read this. The gist of this is that no external rites, rituals, scholarship, charity, penance, what have you, none of this is going to actually help you connect with Naam or give you access to Naam or to make this sort of connection that Gurbani is telling us to make. So that should become very clear to us that this is not an intellectual activity. This is not about giving in charity. This is not about doing your morning rituals, nitnem, or whatever you want to call them. They might help you in other ways, but they are not going to connect you to Naam. So it clearly is suggesting that the path or the route is not outside, but inside, and we'll come to that again. So when I look at all of this, I asked myself the question, Naam is appearing to us in many multifaceted ways, right? So how would I look at Naam if I had to sort of look at it? Because I would look at it from various dimensions. And I just sort of, just for the heck of it, made a list of things that I think Naam would sort of, that would be applicable to Naam. And at the very top, I have the Summum Bonum, which means the highest good or the highest purpose that man must aspire to. And I certainly think it is very applicable here. I also think that Naam is a living system. It is not something that is passive and dead. It is the universe around us is a living system, and it is the organizing principle. Meaning, I mean, think of it as the blueprint of all creation. I also think of it as the whole of which we are a part. It's almost like a hagiograph and a holograph, rather. And I also think that, like you have the world of phenomena, it is a numinous presence. It is a presence. The emphasis on the word presence. And to me, it is also the creative expression or motivation of Ekonkar, because we have that passage from Asa Kivar, Apine Aap Sajyo, Apine Rachyo Now, Doi Kudrat Sajye. So I think it also suggests that this is the creative expression, and it is also the revelation. And then this morning, I was thinking about it, and I said, it is also consciousness. I mean, chetna, awareness. It is of that nature. And I added a literary device because I want to talk about the word Naam itself in a couple of slides down. But the bottom line is, it seems to me that the way Gurbani has presented Naam, at least to me, is that it is the end. It is the goal that everyone should be pursuing. It is the tool. It is the method. It is the know-how. It's everything rolled into one. and we just have to figure out which one is which, right? So that's how I'm kind of looking at Naam. So at bottom, indescribable, generic term for what we call God in other cultures. Let me see now. Let me go to the next one. Yeah, this is something I want to really share with you at some length. I find this quite interesting, and it is something that I have tried to figure out in my own mind, because, and I'll tell you why, because, over the years, we've had these discussions about Naam, what is Naam Japna and what is Naam Simran, and so on. And of course, there are very divergent opinions, and usually it generates a lot of heat. And so I have always tried to figure out, this whole idea of Naam. It's why is it a generic term? Why has it been used? And how does it relate to the many names that are there? The Kirtam Naams, and what is the connection? And I will just share with you my current understanding, inadequate as it is. So, just to set the context again, I'm trying to figure out, you have, God is nameless, right? Anam, and yet has countless names, asank. And so it's kind of a paradox. And in fact, Gurbani itself poses the question, which name will ferry me or ferry us across the Bhavsagar? Kaun naam gur jaake simre, Bhavsagar puttariye, and so on. There are many shabads like that, but even Gurbani poses those questions. And then Gurbani makes the distinction between attributive names and the name and the satnam, which is beyond descriptors. Kirtan naam kathe tere jeba. You're all very familiar with this, so I really don't want to sort of have to read this through. But this is what I have tried to figure out, and it seems to me that naam here. I thought of it as kind of a literary device to help us understand, because when you have a situation where you have attributive names for this, for ik, for ikonkar or God, normally what happens is they're used as a tool to recall the entity that we call God, right? I mean, people use Ram, Rahim, Kartar, whatever, to draw to their minds the idea of this entity. So I was sort of thinking that when all is said and done, I mean, these attributive names still depend on language, which is a structure of Maya. And an attribute always conjures up an image in the mind, and because it is something that is coming out, it is a scale that we've created. It's man-made. So whenever you sort of think of Kartar, you think of a creator, you might have an associated image. But nonetheless, the language is still of this realm. And we know that Naam informs this realm, but it's also transcendent. So it obviously does not describe Naam fully, right? And I was reading somewhere a while ago, which gave me this idea, and I can't remember the reference, otherwise I would have given it to you. But it said that, when you think about the fact that we have given many attributive names, and that these names are all at the language level, intellectual level, the danger that you run into, and the danger that we seem to have run into, is that God gets reduced to Maya in the shape of pictures, idols, and so on, right? And the end result is that you end up worshiping your own images, your own descriptors. And here's the key. In so doing, God is never experienced. It's just named because you can't experience it because it's all intellectual. It's, these names are all sort of a language. So the choice of Naam is to me very significant because Naam, as I have said down here, is kind of an empty signifier because it doesn't signify anything. It's just name. And I was thinking, how do you experience this Naam? How does it intersect with the other kirtan naams that we have? And here, if you think about, if we just spend a moment thinking in terms of Sargun and Nirgun, which helped me understand this a little better, is we have these two terms, Sargun and Nirgun, right? And Nirgun essentially signifies the experience of God or divinity, where it is ineffable, without qualities, and is beyond naming. And so in this sort of word, Nirgun stands for a detachment or non-existence. I mean, in this scenario, God has no name, and Naam is being used to signify something that is empty or is absent. And Sargun, on the other hand, God has infinite names, and they correspond to infinite attributes. And so in some ways, where Nirgun stands for emptiness, this stands for complete fullness and full involvement, if you will. But the interesting thing is that for Guru Nanak, both of these terms are the same. Nirgun aap, Sargun bhi ohi. So it seems as though what Guru Nanak is saying is that the one that is detached is also involved. I mean, these are different aspects of the same formless one, Sargun, Nirgun, Nirankar. So God is beyond, yet actualizes through the relationships, within this world. So it seems to me almost that Naam is helping us kind of make the connection between the unseen and the seen. It is kind of bringing the two pieces together. And as I said earlier, my thoughts on this are still not very mature, but I'm trying to work them out because I think this is a very interesting concept, at least to me, because Naam is combining the Sargun and the Nirgun. So I was thinking, how does that impact me in terms of living life? Because what it is telling me is that there is a Sargun aspect to me, right? I have a body which is visible and which is, reacting and interacting with the world outside. And yet I know that the ground of my being is unseen, is Nirgun. I'm also within Nirgun, right? So in real practical terms, when I think of Naam, I am thinking of detachment. And when I think of the Kirtan Naams, I'm thinking I'm in action. So I think this kind of helps you, because when you think Naam, you're not thinking images. You're not reducing it to an intellectual category. You can't, because it's not signifying anything. But I think it does have that effect on the mind. But I wanted to share this idea with you because I find it quite interesting, and we'll see when we discuss what you guys think about it. Again, here, this is something you all know. I mean, a lot of you have already heard this before, but the discussion on Sargun Nirgun, I think, I don't know if you have, but you haven't, we'll have a discussion about that. We all know how is Naam accessed. Satguru is the channel. Don't need to spend too much time on that. And then I have used this in the past. What is the developmental process? Why don't we why aren't we in connection with Naam? What is the issue? And again, here, this U sort of curve, on the left is Haume, and on the right is Hukam, and at the bottom is Naam, which is the presencing, right? So the left kind of indicates our default state, our current state, the way we are conditioned. And we need to sort of be able to connect with Hukam, but we can't go directly there. We have to go through the presencing of Naam. That's kind of the idea here that I'm catching. And what has to happen is you have to travel down on the left, and an inversion has to happen. You have to move inwards. And there is in Bani all kinds of methodology to do that, which we can talk about also. But the fact of the matter is that it involves redirecting your attention. It also involves, essentially it involves developing fresh eyes, because at some level, Haume is, to me, the conditioning that reveals reality to us at a very shallow, superficial level. It is needed to function in the world of Maya, but that's all it is. I mean, and it binds us here. So we need to get past it. And I personally think that what gets lost when Haume comes to the forefront is a sense of wonder, a sense of awe, for nature around us. I think we've lost that. What we need to do is renew that, to try and enter the mystery as I see it around us. And so that's what this U curve kind of represents. We can talk more about that. I don't want to sort of keep reading these slides to you, but basically the paradigm shift involved is from being self-assertive to integrative, from rational to intuitive, because you want to start being able to live by reading patterns in nature, and so on. You can read this for yourself. But the bottom line is, Gurbani is telling me that, Naam works on the physical plane as well, but it also works in the non-physical reality, which is experience, which we have to experience with the second set of senses, right? That include instinct, intuition, and which are not processed logically, right? Which is what we do, but intuitively and in a different sort of way. So primarily, I want to conclude by saying that to me, Naam is not something to be talked about too much, but Naam is something to be experienced. Naam is in you, it is around you. And Gurbani is telling me that, Gurbani is scripture to me. So when I go to Gurbani as scripture, that scripture is telling me that nature, the world around you, the universe around you is true scripture. Go read that scripture, because in doing so, you'll be reading yourself. And that's basically the idea. That's all I've got. Thank you, Ji.
Anji, thank you, Vijay. Thank you very much. Vijay, I think I will start with the first one since I have the opportunity here. So in the Japji Sahib last passage, we have Jinni Naam Tihaya. So what exactly is meant by Naam Tihana?
So, we had a slide here, right? Different sort of modes in which we associate or engage with Naam. And Tyana really, I think in Punjabi, it means to sort of hold in your mind, to remember. So the idea is holding Naam in your mind. Now, what does that mean? It means, as I said earlier, being aware of this nameless, essence that resides inside of you and outside of you, that is the true source of your being. So Jinni Naam Dhyana means those who have reflected, contemplated, and attempted to connect with this essence. Gaye Mushakat Kal. Mushakat Kal is, this is not easy work. This requires a great deal of, personal work. It is something that just doesn't happen for the most part. It can. I mean, there's no reason to believe that it cannot happen instantly through grace. But the fact is that for most of us, it is a mushakat kal. And, so that to me is what Naam Tyana means. That it's referring to those who have actually tried to connect with Naam, people who have tried to move Naam into their, who've done Naam Jap, who have done Naam Dhyan, who have listened, Naam Suni, Naam, and who have ultimately moved Naam into their hirday, and I call it heart, but it is really not the organ heart that we're talking about. Although in olden times, I think the use of the word heart used to be closer to Hirday than it is today. In the Indian system, actually, from what little I know, the Hirday is supposedly behind your your forehead and behind your eyes. But I don't know that much about it. I read somewhere that that's where Hirday actually is. But it's not a physical place, but it's the deepest essence of your own being, the deepest depths of your being. So for those who have moved Naam, who have moved themselves to that, I think of it this way. I almost think that there are two selves in existence. There is one self that we've given a name to, right? And there is another self that we really have not given a name to, and that's the Naam in you. So our whole enterprise is, how do I reorient and reconstruct the Naam that I have applied a label to, and swim my way into towards where the Anam is. I hope that helps.
Anji Virji, thank you, Ji. Chetandeep?
Anji Virji, Vai Khalsa, Vai Guru Ji Fateh. I think you covered a lot of ground in a short amount of time. And so the question I have for you is, you addressed or you touched upon that multiple times in your presentation. Like, how can I as an individual connect with Naam today, right? And like, how can I access that? And you might say, as you referred in your presentation, that you can get to Naam or access Naam through Satgur. But what I would ask you, again, is like, can you share some practical steps in my daily life? Or, as you said, Naam is beyond any external activities. So no external activities can get you there. And you also refer to intellectual activities. But did you mean to say, if Naam is beyond any external activity, is it in the realm of internal activity? But that brings out the question, like, can we access Naam through our effort, be it internal, and like, or is it like simply no effort on our part can help us access Naam? But it again brings back to, like, from Sargun realm to Nirgun realm, as you said, right? We are Sargun beings, we are here.
Yeah.
Right. And you also said being aware of nameless and reflecting on, contemplating on that. So were you referring to meditation, or like, can you share some of your thoughts on that?
I will try. I will try. This is rather tricky because when I say that Naam engages our faculties and no externals will actually get you there, I'm just quoting Bani, right? And yet, we are in some senses engaged in all of these activities, right? We are engaged in some form of ritual. We are engaged in some bodily control, charities, and scholarship in varying degrees, intellectual activities. And also the fact is that we are Sargun at a level, and when we want to recall this thing we call Naam or God, because Naam to me is a generic term for God. We typically use descriptive, attributive names. So the way I look at it is that so ultimately, yes, ultimately, Naam is not an external activity. It is an inner being. It is an inner sort of state of mind, if you will. I wouldn't even want to call it that. But but what I'm trying to say is that there exists some. It isn't a disconnect from the Sargun to the Nirgun. Naam is the connector, right? And so people who do Naam Jap, for example, or do meditation, for example, this is not to suggest that that is worthless. I almost personally feel that it's like a ladder where you actually take the first step. It's like a scaffolding that you might need to build a building. But the point is, once you've built the structure, then you don't need the scaffolding. You don't need these externals, right? So that I think is closer to what this Shabad is saying. But I think to your point, some personal things, I think I alluded to this earlier, this sense of awe and wonder about the universe around you, which we in Punjabi say jigyasa. I mean, if you don't have that, I think you're pretty much dead to the universe around you. And that's where Naam is, the mystery around you, right? So I think the first thing is, no matter what you do, it seems to me the first thing to do is stop, right? You have to stop your current thought process. And because unless you stop, you're not going to reflect. You have to reflect on what it is that you're doing. Where do you think you're going? So a lot of these questions, are the basic things you have to ask yourself. And then we all have our temperaments, right? I mean, when we talk about scholarship, for example, I personally tend to be a little more intellectual in my approach to things. I like to be able to go into Gurbani and figure out different meanings, words, their implications. But I will say this to you, since I have used this and I'm using my own example, after years of doing a great deal of reading and reading Gurbani and so on, I have come to the conclusion that, yes, this is an interest I have, but it's just that, it's an interest. And yes, this very activity has pointed me to the real activity. So what I'm saying is that when you engage in any Sargun type, Sabad Vichar, for example, contemplation, going back to Gurbani over and over again, if it is not pointing you to Naam ultimately, to where you understand that this is just a support, this is nothing more than a support. Even meditation, yeah, it'll make you feel good, it'll help you, but if it isn't moving you in that direction, then you've gotten caught in the activity itself. It'll help you to a point, it'll help you feel better, but it's not going to take you where you need to go. So in my own case, I was never a believer in rituals. I did practice meditation as a kid. I forced myself, but then I realized, one has to look at one's temperament. What really is stuff that you like to do? And I found that I enjoyed reading Gurbani and trying to understand it. And over the years, the words actually jump at me sometimes. And when I actually articulate the words, I derive a great deal of satisfaction and enjoyment, for want of a better word. But I have no illusion that, this is not the end in itself. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Virji.
Thank you, Chetandev. Anji. Ekonkarji.
Well, I really enjoyed your presentation, and I think what resonated the most for me was the inner being and the outer being, like the idea we have, the name we go by, and then the inner experience. Since I'm presenting next week, I think I'm just going to listen more than comment this week. But I think one thing I'd want to offer to the conversation is that I think Satnam is, like, when I translate Sat as authentic. The true name, it gets into this linguistic problem, the true name, the fake name, it's like sets up a duality when you use Sat as true. But when you talk about the authentic identity, and I think that, again, I feel like Guru Nanak was trying to make things really simple. And basically he was saying, all of you are a pure creation of a pure creator. The light of the divine is in you, and you have an authentic identity. And if you don't experience your authentic identity, then all this other stuff you do is a waste of time. And so that's the only thing I would offer tonight, is that I understand like getting into the signifier and the signified and Naam being sort of beyond. But I also think that the beyond is beyond what I think into authenticity is not a thought. Authenticity is like an inner alignment, a vibration of alignment within oneself that you can't articulate or explain to anybody or prove to anybody, but you can experience. So those are my thoughts for tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ji. Ripudama Ji.
You're breaking off.
I actually have no questions to ask. It was
You have a ton of questions.
It was lucid presentation. I kind of kept on nodding my head throughout. So nodding as in like in agreement, not in sleep. So, yeah, I don't have any questions to ask.
Okay, good.
Okay, good. Thank you, Ji. And Dilpreet Veer Ji.
Hanji Veer Ji, thank you for taking time, and I liked the way you started that something to live for. And then what struck me more is that your bullet points, that how you look at it, it is a living system, organizing principle and other things. So Veer Ji, I had one thing, if you can clarify. You answered what Harinder Veer Ji asked about Tyona. And is Japna anything different between Tyona? And if you can elaborate a little bit on the sound, that will help.
So I think I have grown up thinking that, Japna, to jap, always involved some sort of repetition. And then as I got older, I discovered that that was not necessarily the case. And Tyona to me is always been to bring something to your mind. Japna to me may mean a repetition, but it also means contemplation and reflection. So the two are a little different. To hold something in your mind and to actually reflect and contemplate on something, I think there is a slight difference, at least the way I understand it.
Okay. And what about that sound thing you said? That how is the sound related?
The reason I threw in sound is, in Bani, Naam is associated with sound. It is described as light, which you can take to be knowledge. Sound you can understand to be Shabad, because Shabad is based on a sound principle. And the reason I put in, I particularly put in sound and light, because I wanted to make the connection between the sort of knowledge or the organizing principle that goes behind the scenes, and Shabad, being the sound principle, the vibration that actually creates. So the creative channel and the two, Naam and Shabad, are very overlapping and intertwined concepts, along with Hukam. So the way I see them is that they are the same thing at bottom, perhaps just in different states. One is in a different state from the other, but Shabad is really the one that is creating based on these are my words, the blueprint that Naam is, the organizing principle that Naam is. And there is no creation without sound. I mean, I'm talking to you right now and creating sound because we are creating something between the two of us. So that's why I put sound in there, because that is what Shabad is. I think the term is logos in the West to the word, the sound.
Okay, Virji. And the last thing I had, then you said that it is the goal that everyone should pursue, right? So, and then in some sense, the entire teaching of Gurbani is the goal we should pursue, right? So the whole Gurbani is also a Naam for us.
In a manner of speaking, yes, because it introduces you to the idea what you should be doing. So in that sense, yes, but not in the ultimate sense, because as I said, I mean, Naam is really a spectrum, right? I mean, it isn't as if it isn't present in the material world, except that it is also in the immaterial world, and that's where its being is. It's the ground of all being, so it cuts all across. So to me, Bani is more Shabad, right? Because it is sort of being created for us to read out of language. And again, as I said earlier, the concepts are so intertwined. Whatever is applicable to Shabad is more or less applicable to Naam if you read the descriptors.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Virji.
Thank you, Virji. Anji, Rana Virji.
Anji, Vaheguru Ji Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Fateh Ji, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Anji, Ravinder Virji, thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. Naam is something we are trying to understand, and I am on the same boat. You mentioned that these are references to the attributions of Ikimkar, Akal Purakh, the attributive names. When we read, for example, Nanak naam tina ko milya, jinko tur lik paya. When we read that, there are a lot of the references like that in Gurbani. Then when I sit down and pause, and I just want to see your assessment or your interpretation of that. When I read these things, it comes to me that like Akal Purakh, which is formless, although it's a reality, but it is because it's incomprehensible to us. I consider that as an abstract concept that's beyond our comprehension, although it's a real. And I think Naam is also something, but we have brought it down to naming in the conventional sense that Naam and our names are similar. And when we read these panktis, it shows me, no, we are going in a wrong direction. Naam is something which is very abstract, but real at the same time. Real in the abstract in the sense because it is beyond our comprehensions. So the question I have is, what you talked about is we have been trying to understand that, and we carry that notion, and we want to clarify that. How does this type of reference in Gurbani align with what we just talked about?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure that I grasped your question fully. But so I'll be completely honest. You mean the reference that you read earlier?
Yeah. What I'm saying, when I read this Nanak naam tina ko milya, so that means Naam is something, although it is not accessible to us, we cannot comprehend it, but it is something real out there. The same way God is real, but it's not, is a formless, we cannot comprehend it. Okay. Now let me come back to that. When I look at Naam, I think I was reading somewhere, and I'm just throwing this for general reaction to that. Okay, if we look at sun outside, sun has no utility if there's no light and warmth which is coming out of it. Sun is only important because the light is there which is radiating and the warmth which is coming. I think God is only relevant because it is reflecting Naam. Naam is emanating from Akal Purakh. Akal Purakh's value is only because of Naam. So I think Naam is a conducting way between us and Akal Purakh, and Naam emanates. It's not these names which are being referred to. The Guru Nanak Sahib कहते तेरे किन्ने नाम ने kirtan naam sat naam, that there is a reality out there. Sat naam, that's a real naam, is that's attached to you. So this is the way I was thinking. So when we go and talk about all the conventional norms, because our intellect takes us only in the physical plane, and we talk about name as Naam. I think the Naam in Gurbani has a very different connotation than the Naams we talk about in conventional discussion. So coming back to my question is, when we read Nanak Naam Tina ko milya, doesn't it convey that Naam is something not the name reference to any name or attribution? It is something different.
So, I mean, the second time around, I heard you with a little more care. And my response is as follows. I think I have I'm in total agreement with you. And I hope that was the impression that I gave you through my presentation. I really was not dwelling on the other Kirtan Naams. I think I was pretty much saying the same thing that you just said, that Naam is something that is ineffable. But, in Gurbani, Naam is also a Padarat, and essentially at bottom it is knowledge, Gyan. Gyan Padarat, Naam Padarat sort of go hand in hand. But to your point, I completely concur with you. I mean, I'm not at all suggesting anything otherwise. If you got that impression, I need to correct that.
Okay, very good. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Anji, thank you, Virji. Anji, Gagan.
Kripa Virji, next time I'll have questions.
Thank you, Ji. And Gurjeet Virji.
So it was a wonderful presentation and I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Ji.
Thank you very much, Virji. Second, I think just from these conversations, I think we should have the next one and we'll have the same sort of on Nirgun Sargun, because that will clarify it more, because this is also coming in between. So Rana Virji also posed quite a question, which is basically the summary of your talk. I'll also try to ask the same way that in Japji, we read there are two sorts of naams. At one stage, Guru Nanak writes, Akhri Naam Akhri Salah. And in the other stage, he writes, Aisa Naam Niranjan Hoi. So how you connect these two? That are there two different sorts of naams? Or how they are interrelated?
My understanding, Virji, little as it is that there are indeed two, and they relate to this Nirgun Sargun concept. They are referred to as Dhunatmak and Varnatmak naams. I mean, one is descriptive, which are captured in letters, and the other is Dhunatmak naam, which is really Shabad, which has an inner kind of dhun or voice or sound that cannot be heard with the physical apparatus that we have. Kanni bajo sunna. That is the other naam. So yeah, I think there is a distinction there.
So will you assume that one is Jad and another is Chetan?
Naam essentially is Chetan.
But Akhri Naam is
Jad. That's what I said earlier, that all of these Kirtan naams that we have are in Maya. They are Jad. So therefore, they cannot really capture true Naam, which is Chetan.
So it means this Jad actually is taking us on a journey to the Chetan. Hopefully. Is that, you'll say that this is awareness and that is energy? Will that be right?
Vijay, you're leading me on here a little bit, but yes, I told Ripu Daman that I see this as a ladder and a journey from the very physical, from the very material to the more subtle. That's how I see it.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Virji. Ravindraji, I think we covered everyone, but we can have chance to go one more round.
No.
And I will ask you
no.
one simple question. So basically, you mentioned that we do a lot of things like nickname, kirtan, discussions. So, and they are all external. And so, how are we doing the right things, or are these things important, or we are missing the real fact?
Look, and again, this is me talking, okay? I don't think there is anything right or wrong, good or bad. You know, are we doing the right things? I don't know. Should we be doing this? The fact is that we are here doing them, right? To me, each one of us has to eventually figure out this whole thing for themselves. And it helps to talk to, I mean, it certainly helped me being on Khoj Gurbani, unquestionably. It has certainly helped me to do Nitnem. It has certainly helped me to sort of do Gurbani Vichar. But as I have also, matured in years and gone through different phases, I have questioned a lot of these things because I have at times had experiences that tell me that what Naam is just a whole different thing. And to our discussion earlier, these may all be supports, and these may all be means. Certainly, this is not a solo project. Nobody ever climbed the mountain alone, for sure. They're always tied into base camp. So our Sangat here is like base camp. You just can't do all of this. In fact, it is because we are doing Sangat and because we are discussing and dialoguing that we are actually carving our paths out. So I wouldn't look at it as right or wrong. I know we have a tendency to sort of classify very quickly, oh, this is right, or this is wrong, or this is good or bad. I think find the sort of activities that you like to do. Like I mentioned earlier, I like to reflect on Gurbani. I like to read it. I like to think through it. I'm not that inclined to sit cross-legged and do meditation. I mean, it's just me, right? But I've finally figured that this is really how I get attached to Gurbani. I mean, I like just sort of doing that sort of thing. But then others may not like this. Some people like Kirtan, right? But at the end of the day, I also think that Gurbani is a very broad path, and it seems to me that a little of everything is perhaps desirable.
Thank you, Virji. Chetandeep, any final questions?
Virji, I've been dwelling on the example Virji gave, and I really like the example that it's kind of supports whatever we are doing, be it an internal activity or an external activity. They're like a scaffolding. And I was visualizing it's like trying to reveal or trying to uncover a sort of kingdom of heaven within us, right? And we are trying to step here and there and climb up and do all sorts of things. Right? If I take it from this perspective, then as Virji said, a little bit of everything, Kirtan, Naam, repetition, meditation, these are all supports. But then Gurbani also says, and you pointed out in your presentation, Bin Satgur Kinanapayo. So Satgur is the key, or Satgur has the key to Naam. Can you elaborate on this, Satgur? What's your understanding of that?
Well, I mean, we've talked about the distinctions between Gurs, Sadgur, Gurdev, and so on this forum itself. So,
also from a practical perspective.
Well, I mentioned this earlier because and I'll just say this from my own personal experience to you. To me, I started out, and the Guru was the Guru Granth Sahib, right? Then the Guru Granth Sahib tells me, the Guru that I went to, the Guru Granth Sahib, told me as I engaged with it that, hey, go find the Guru. And I'm like, but you are the Guru. No, I'm not the Guru. The Guru is within you. Okay? So that's the kind of conversation that I'm just sort of giving you a sampling of. Oh, okay, really? So then this is how you turn inward, because the guru that you're going to is telling you, go find the guru. And so you turn inwards then. You begin to look and say, gee, my guru is telling me that you need to look and find the guru within. So then you begin to examine all of that stuff. I mean, and that is a process in itself. And then Gurbani here, our guide, mentor, is telling us that all of this process happens within, right? It is not a physical process. And so you then spend time in sangat, or you read, or you try to figure out how does this process work. So I personally think, I keep saying, qualifying that, because this is just me thinking, and I could be really off the mark, but that wouldn't be the first time. My sense is this: our interaction with reality around us is very shallow. We know that. We all know that. That's what Haume is. So, but we need it to be that way. I also believe that, as I said earlier, that we also have a subtle, and Ekonkarji referred to as the authentic us, right? I believe that there is a process, there is a way to move inward to actually awaken faculties within us that are hidden, that are right now not awakened, not activated, that we are more than what we appear to be in terms of our potential. So Naam, in some senses, to me, is the quantum potential, the potential of every possibility, right? It's quantum reality to me. So yeah, so when you want to go and sort of touch those faculties, you need the Sadguru, because the Sadguru is inside, and the Sadguru is in that quantum reality, right? So you have to move inwards, and when your faculties awaken, and I know that Gurjeet Singh Virji likes to refer to it, rightly so, as the awakening of the intellect, the buddhi, right? Then you begin to see things differently. You have a fresh perspective. The problem is that right now, with our mat, where it is, we are not seeing anything different, and we think there is nothing different. Does that help?
And
Anji Virji, thank you.
thank you, Virji.
Oh, that's why you're gonna...
Anji, 1 minute. Ekonkarji, any final comments?
I've just enjoyed listening to this dialogue, and thank you.
Thank you, Ji.
Thank you, all of you, for indulging me.
Anji, Dilpreet Virji.
Anji, 10 बज गए ने.
Okay, Ji. Anji, Rana Virji.
Time हो गया. Can I say something on that?
Anji, sure. Quick, Ji. 30 seconds.
No, it was very good question. Deep उन्होंने पूछा जरा question, and I enjoy the response too. But then I also got a little confounded here, because that's my problem, not yours, because we get into a circular argument there. Okay, we are to look ourselves inside, and we don't know who we are talking about. We are telling that's where I just pause here, that when you tell me you look inside yourself, whom are you referring to? Are you not telling to the same inside thing to look inside? So this is where I personally am very confused here. So I just pause here when I hear these. You look inside, and I see, oh, whom are you talking about? Whom are you talking to? You're not talking to the same person whom we are looking for. So I will pause here.
Topic for another day. Topic for another day. Good question, but topic for another day.
Okay.
Anji, Ripudaman, any final comments? Anji, Gagan Virji, any final comments?
Just final comments, maybe topic for another day is till what I have understood till now and what I've heard here also, my mental model has been that Gyan and Naam are very similar things, and it's the differentiation between Gyan and eventually when and how it turns into Naam that I would really like to love to learn, because I am stuck here. Is at Gyan. It's like keep collecting experiential as well as worldly Gyan. and when does it flip over to becoming actual Naam? That would love to understand that, and maybe some other day.
Thank you, Ji. Gurjit Ji, any final comments?
No, Ji, all good, Ji. Thank you.
Thank you, Ji. Ravinder Ji, any final comments for today? All yours.
नहीं जी, 10:10 मिनट हो गए ना.
Okay. Thank
But
you very
thank
much.
you. Thank you everybody for indulging me. I mean that. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Virji. And Ekamkar Ji, we're looking forward to you next week, and we continue on the Naam. And thanks everyone for joining. Ji, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa.
Very good.
Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.